heard? We live, y'all. This is gonna be a good one. Put your seatbelts on. Leave your feelings at the door of this house. It's gonna be a good one. Let's get into it. I'm gonna let this play a little bit. You know, I know it's been a while, so I know some folks like, what's going on? Are you still doing it? We ain't stopped. So I want to keep some things real with y'all, right? Because it has been a while. I know I haven't been on here in a while. And I do want to make sure, hold on, let me get this right. Actually, I know how to fix this. All right. Give me a second. So I know it's been a while, y'all. Actually, let me keep this on. I know it's been a while, and a lot of folks have asked me a lot of different questions around like what's going on, what's the direction of the channel, are you gonna keep going, are you gonna slow it down, like what's the direction of the channel? I see that you've talked about all different sorts of things, and I don't see how it relates. You know, some folks are like, I see you talking about the gentrification and the urban renewal and all the different Black Wall Streets. And sometimes I see you talking about mortgages, and you talk about how to get a loan. And Sometimes I see you talking about different things and law and what is all like. It seems like you're kind of all over the place. But the truth of the matter is, I'm not all over the place. There is a method to the strategy that I'm going over, and make no mistake about it. My decade plus, about 15 years plus of work experience is primarily in the banking and finance industry. So, and primarily in mortgage and real estate industry in that space. So everything I'm talking about and everything that you do in your daily lives centers around real estate. They go to war for real estate. They do all kinds of things for real estate. Buy, sell. Some people do other things like harming people, mistreating people, taking real estate. And I want to make sure we are very, very, very particular about taking real estate. Because the way that I look at things is real estate belongs to God. Anything on earth, that's God's. That don't belong to you, that don't belong to me. It belongs to the Most High God. And there are some devious characters as a collective that thinks that real estate belongs to them. Believes it belongs to them. Some people call them the elites. I call them the powerful class or the money masters. But they believe real estate belongs to them. So much so that they put a doctrine that said they could take real estate. But before we get into that, before we get into the nitty gritty of what we're here for, I wanted to go over a few things and something that's near and dear to my heart. Excuse me, I had to get some water. Something that's near and dear to my heart when we're talking about real estate. And my great uncle, many years ago, many moons ago, was displaced due to his father, which is my great great grandfather, being lynched. It really put our family in a bind, and he ended up joining the army and serving in World War II. And he was stationed out in California, or he had basic training in California, and he was like, if I make it back, I'm gonna get a home here, and this is where I'm gonna be. And all of that was centered around him having to move because my great great grandfather, his father, was lynched. And at the age of 16, he had to join the military because the family was struggling. So he had to join the military and leave, all behind someone who made up a cockamamie story because they have the support of the powerful class, which allowed the people of the community in Little Rock, Arkansas to lynch my grandfather. They drug him down downtown Little Rock for miles, hung him up on a telephone pole, and then began to shoot him. The next day, the police were using his limbs to direct traffic. I watched my grandmother, his wife. I did meet her when I was a young boy. I watched her struggle. Very resilient woman, powerful woman. But it displaced my family. Matter of fact, this is something that you can pull up and look at because my grandfather, let me see if I can, let me see. Hold on. So I was looking at something else, but let's take a look here. Yeah, I was looking at some redlining, which we'll be breaking this down to the redlining that was going on in Jacksonville and amongst other places, because gentrification, you hear it and you think of like wealthy people invest in real estate investors buying up stuff, and they raise up the taxes and they put condos and all kind of other stuff out there, and that's gentrification. It's about the wealthy. It has nothing to do with race. It's about wealthy, and and other people are impacted too. But we're gonna get into some real things here. We're gonna get into it. All right, yeah, you guys get to see all that. Yeah, hold on. Lynching of John Carter. Yeah, I had looked it up. So yeah, you should be able to see. May 4th, 1927. A mob of armed white men captured 22-year-old black man named John Carter, hanged him from a telephone pole, and riddled his body with bullets in downtown Arkansas. This is my grandfather here. Let's see if we can find some images of him so you can see. But we'll take a look at it right here. Because we're talking about gentrification, but most particularly, we're talking about displacement. And I just wanted to give a story that was near and dear to my heart when we're talking about displacement and how my family was displaced. And this is one of several stories that I can break down to you about my family being displaced. However, in early May 1927 in Pulaski County, experienced a wave of mob violence surrounding a lynching of and my grandfather actually is not African, but of a black American man named John Carter, an event that was closely connected with the conviction and execution of a black teen. Carter's lynching and rioting that followed is one of the most notorious incidents of racial violence in the state's history. This event reveals much about the history of race relations in Little Rock, as well as the state's struggle with its national image. The episode began on April 30th, 1927. We're approaching the anniversary here this month when the dead body of a white girl named Floella McDonald, described as anywhere between 11 and 13 years of age, was discovered by a janitor, Frank Dixon, in the belfry of the First Presbyterian Church in Little Rock, Arkansas, following a massive three-week search effort by law enforcement, citizens, and civic organizations. Police detained the janitor and his 16-year-old son, Lonnie Dixon, the latter based largely on information offered by another young white girl, Billie Jean Kincleole, who said he talked to her that day as well. Police reported obtaining an oral confession from the younger Dixon. I'm not going to get into all of that. I want to kind of break down how you get into dealing with my grandfather. But however, I first wanted to kind of get you guys a picture of him. That was more or less what I was trying to look at. I'm not sure how friendly this picture is for YouTube. But here we go. This is my grandfather, man. My great-great-grandfather here. You guys thought it would be a good, well, not you all, but the tools of the powerful class thought it'd be a good idea to mistreat him because another woman was hurt. And they just went on a mistreatment spree of killing and taking from land that they already had been taken. Land that didn't belong to them. Even the name Arkansas. That's an indigenous name. So we know that, there's strangers on this land. Strangers on this land. And that's what we're here to talk about is displacement. Because a lot of times you hear gentrification and your mind will go in ways and other places that maybe you shouldn't be. You know what I mean? Sometimes you need to look at the history when we're talking about gentrification. There were people, evil entities that thought it would be a great idea to put together a doctrine to go out taking other people's real estate. If you didn't look like them, if you didn't worship like them, to take your real estate. And they've been setting up laws to continue to make sure you don't reestablish your real estate. That's where the redlining comes from. That's where the gentrification comes from. That's where the Homeowners Loan Corporation came from. Urban renewal, all the freeways, all the different laws, and every area of activity is set up to make sure that the powerful class continues to maintain and take as well as exploit your resources, particularly your real estate. This is about real estate. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about real estate. So, no, I'm not all over the place. No, I'm not just out here saying any and everything. We're talking about real estate. And the powerful class decides who gets real estate, how much it's going to cost, how much of it you're going to get. And this all is real estate that belongs to God. It doesn't belong to them. It doesn't belong to them at all. But they're going to make it as that's the case. And everybody has bought into this idea, so it makes it tough for anybody else who tries to point out the truth. And we're going to break a lot of things down today, so make no mistake. We're breaking things down. Bear with me. But we're going to learn a lot, because gentrification didn't start in cities, all right? What if I told you that it started with a document, better yet, a doctrine that decided who has the right to own land and who doesn't? Just like you see on the thumbnail right there, it shows the powerful class and all the different real estate that they dominate, operate, and control till this day. Till this day. It's operated and controlled to this day. So tonight, we're not just going to be talking about rising rents or new condos that's being put up in the old historic district. We're going to go a little bit more in depth. You got to dig deep. You got to dig deep. And today we're going to be digging deep into what's going on and has been going on as it pertains to real estate, right? We're talking about the origins of displacement. See, we're not going to just deal with the anecdotal stuff. We'll touch on it. I'll continue to do my Black Wall Street documentaries. Those aren't going anywhere. I've had to take some time out to do more research to make sure the information I'm putting out is of quality. Because I don't want y'all out here just getting some microwave. I want to make sure y'all getting like the Ruth's Chris of documentaries, or even, higher than that. I don't want to put out the microwave version and just hurrying up and putting stuff out. I want to make sure the photos and images are accurate. My references are accurate. All my information is accurate. And I'm trying to add another layer to it with doing actual interviews. So that way many people can chime in and kind of help me out as it pertains to putting together my documentaries. But what I was trying to break down here, hold on. I have some technical difficulties, I guess. Let me see. What's this all about? I mean, stuff that's not even that necessary. Always pops up whenever I'm doing a live stream or even recording. I always have to deal with other stuff because, when you're bringing that truth to power, man, the enemy hates it. But you got to bring that truth to power. Like I said, we're talking about real estate. I talk about the history of real estate, the current state of real estate, and even how you can obtain real estate, even amongst the money masters, even amongst them. So let me ask you something. When you hear the word gentrification, what comes to mind? Are you thinking about new buildings? Are you thinking about high rent? Are you thinking about people just getting pushed out because the taxes done went up and they can't afford to be there anymore? Insurance is spiked up. They can't afford it. Is that those the kind of things that you're thinking about when you hear gentrification? Or are you thinking about, the root cause, where all of this stuff actually began at? Like, what is it that you think about when you hear that? What if what you think gentrification is just the modern version of something that's much older and has been going on before any of us were thought of and before anybody before them were even thought of? And go ahead and drop in the chat what city you've seen being gentrified. Go ahead and drop that in the comments. One of them that I'm noticing could be in that position is Jacksonville. I know I speak a lot about Jacksonville. I got some strong ties there, and it's a place that's near and dear to my heart. When we're talking about a lot of legacy and places that tend to get overlooked, you don't hear about that city as much, except for anything negative. And it's one of the more dominant black cities in the state of Florida. And it is the largest city in Florida. The whole city, the whole county is the city. It's crazy like that there. But there's more to Jacksonville than just the crime. But back to what we're talking about. Long before there was any mortgages, long before there was property taxes, long before there was the Constructive House channel, there was the doctrine of discovery. This doctrine created during the era of European colonization, particularly colonization of the Americas, not just USA, but North America and South America. Because, a lot of time I hear folks often, usually folks in USA often always refer to the USA as America. And it's like, no, America is North and South America. Those are the Americas. Someone who's from Mexico is from America. They're from the continent of America. If you're from the United States of America, that's what country you're from, USA. The continent is America. So someone from Cuba is also from America. They're not from the USA. They're from America, though. That's the island off of America. All of those are North American islands. Jamaica is a North American island. A lot of folks I see are having a challenging time when it comes to geography. But that's what happens when you've been displaced. People are telling you the name of your land is this. They're taking your land and you got to fight back for your land. Then they rename your land and they put flags in your land and they have wars over your land and they tell you what you're going to do with your resources on the land you're standing on when those resources come from the Most High God. But you got people in here telling you what to do with it, exploiting it. And that's why we want to talk about this doctrine. See, what the doctrine essentially said was if the land is not occupied by European Christians, it could be claimed, which meant the people there, which many of the people looked like me, even the people that are in present day North America, even the people that are in present day Africa, Asia, all of these places, there were a lot of people there. Australia with people who look more like me, especially Australia, many other places, this being one of them, USA. But those people who are already living on the land were told due to this doctrine that they don't own the land. That was the beginning of gentrification. And they've been gentrifying and setting up different laws, politics, political structures to ensure that they maintain, dominate, operate, and control that real estate that they started gentrifying way back when. This isn't anything new. Those new condos and all that developing you see in your neighborhood and all that developing you see downtown and these new stadiums and arenas that they keep building that shoot all the taxes up and drives all the locals out and all the big tycoons get to move in. Yet that's the antidote. That's the after effect. Rather, the after effect of the gentrification that started from the doctrine. That's them continuing to refine the doctrine of discovery. Remember, we're talking about real estate. We're talking about real estate. We're talking about real estate. See, the displacement was on a massive scale, just like you see in the thumbnail a massive scale of displacement, land taken, communities removed, ownership reassigned. This was the first version of what we now call gentrification. Now, where it all evolves now is what I like to call the refinement period, because over time, you don't need force when you have policy that says you own something. You know, and I want to get into that part for a little bit, because there's a lot of folks out here who really have a hard time accepting reality. And it's probably because we live in an unreal reality. It's unreal. What's going on out here is unreal. The doctrine of discovery, that's unreal. That you would think that you can just come over here and the Califians and the other tribes that were already in like California and the West Coast, you just go over there and steal their gold, Mr. DeSoto. It's crazy. You just going and taking stuff. I mean, thugging. Straight thugging. Thugging. Gang banging. And straight thugging. Taking real estate that doesn't belong to you. Taking the resources off that real estate and then turning around and saying, oh, we're improving it. I worked in banking and finance for many years, and dudes would tell me this at work, and I would usually ignore them because I don't like to get into these conversations in that space. But they would all, oh yeah, we came over and we had to improve the land. And you didn't improve anything. In fact, you destroyed most of it and it's still deteriorating. You've done a terrible job with the land. And to say we as if you have any dealings with the powerful class is very funny. Like, they don't deal with you. They don't want to be you. They don't want to see you. They wouldn't want to sit down with you. But they'll say we, and it's like, well, what did you improve? You came and you stole stuff. You built dams that have torn up the waterways that God set a certain way so things would be even more abundant than they already were. But you've destroyed it. You've drilled into the land and into God's earth, and you start taking stuff. You taking oil and just grabbing it out of the ground. Is not how that was intended to work. So the more you do that, the more you're destroying things. You're not improving anything. It doesn't matter what science says. You can throw 100 million TikTok videos showing how things are getting. They're not getting better. They're not getting better. Things are getting worse. It's called confusion by illusion. You have the illusion that things are better. They're not better. They're not better until people stop stealing real estate, stop using laws to dominate and deceive other people, to destroy other people, to take from them. We have people who have legacies, like my grandmother, who's still alive right now. She had hundreds of acres stripped from her by the powerful class back in the 30s and 40s. She's still alive. She's in her hundreds, still functional, still resilient. And she had acres stolen from her. I believe there's shopping plazas on her land. Just went one day, got a letter in the mail, went up to the bank to see what was going on. They were like, yeah, this all belongs to us now. There's a new thing in town and we're taking it. Eminent domain. We're taking your stuff. Real estate. That's what we're talking about. Real estate. So make no mistake, I'm not all over the place. That's why I talk about the laws. Because we're going to talk about the laws that are always being written and constantly being broken by the powerful class. The money masters. They make the laws, then they break the laws. If you have real estate they want, they'll break it. Find out you have oil on your land right now, they'll go find a reason to take your land from you and give you nothing. And that oil, that's God's, but they'll take it from you and give you nothing. And you're going to like it. Because they're going to say, well, we're sparing your life. Killing in the name of real estate. That's what's going on right now. Killing in the name of real estate. I mean, there's wars going on right now. Battling over other people's real estate. They're still doing the doctrine. They're still doing it. The powerful class. It's crazy, right? That's crazy work. They're still doing it. Taking people's stuff. Move them here. Indigenous people. I have indigenous bloodline. Move over to Oklahoma. Move from North Carolina to Tennessee. Move from Virginia over here. Move. Displace. They've been doing this for a long time, and no one has said a thing about it. They just go along with it. We have so many people whose heads are in the sand, pretending that it doesn't matter, that it's not a big deal, and it just play along and go along, and everything will be fine. No, everything has not been fine. Everything has not been fine. I am one of many millions of stories that people can tell about what's happened to their family being displaced. The heritage of that it has been and is consistently being lost. The confusion by illusion that it's all good. And it's not all good, man. There's nothing good about this. The money masters, they only care about two things: deceit and destruction. If they can't deceive you, they'll just start destroying you. Direct violence, indirect violence, redlining, urban renewal, eminent domain, gentrification. They're going to go through all of the measurements to destroy you in education, in economics, in politics, in labor, in law, even in entertainment. They're going to go through all it takes to destroy you. So when you hear gentrification, understand that that's something that started way back. We're talking about when they had the establishment, and better yet, let's look this up. Let's look up. So folks don't think I'm just, making it up as I go along. Where are we at here? Let's take a look here, man. Yeah, let's take a look at what we got going on here. All right. So the doctrine of discovery was a 15th century legal and religious principle that allowed European Christian nations to claim sovereignty over lands inhabited by non-Christians, profoundly shaping colonial expansion and the indigenous disposition. You see that? You see that? The disposition or dispossession. Excuse my accent a bit. This is displacement. Historical origins. The doctrine of discovery originated in the 15th century through the papal bulls issued by the Catholic Church, including those in 1452, 1455, and most notably the Inter Caetera in 1493 by Pope Alexander VI, the original gangster. See, that's an OG. That's triple OG right there. That's triple OG. Pope Alexander Ben Thuggin VI. That's his name. Ben Thuggin. That man Ben Thuggin. You better believe it. These decrees granted Christian explorers the right to claim lands not under Christian rule and to convert or subjugate the inhabitants, framing colonization as a religious duty to spread Christianity. How many of y'all growing up, you heard the story of, oh man, they were coming there for their religious beliefs? And see, their religion was to take real estate. Until this day, they've been writing laws, funneling tax dollars, moving schools and hospitals, and the modern gentrification, all of that, redlining, all of that has been to further perpetuate, further enforce the doctrine. We took the land. We got to maintain domination over the people of the land. And that's where we are today. So when we're talking about real estate, make no mistake about it. We're talking about this. When we're talking about real estate, we're talking about this. This is what we're talking about, man. This is the real estate that we're talking about. This is what's going on. Legal implementation. The doctrine became embedded in European and later U.S. law. In the United States, the 1823 Supreme Court case Johnson versus McIntosh affirmed that European discovery gave nations an absolute title to lands in the Americas, while indigenous peoples held only right of occupancy. This legal interpretation justified the seizure of indigenous lands and underpinned the expansion of settler nations like the United States and Canada. Real estate. This is real estate. Stealing real estate. Exploiting real estate. Gentrifying real estate. It started way back here in 1493. Look how long ago that they began. The money masters, the powerful class, as a collective, began. This is when they began to gentrify. This is the origins of gentrification right here. Don't let what you see right now in the modern era confuse you into thinking that it's just about the condos and the new stadiums and arenas that all these folks are building, and it's about, you know, the real estate tycoons, and you got the Silicon Valley billionaires and all of them, and they're just taking over and they're raising stuff. No. It started way back in 1493. And even in 1823, the United States put it in law. They put it in law. And I'll have to research if this has ever been overturned, because whenever it's in law, it can be referenced in other court cases. Make no mistake about that. Make no mistake about that. And it's affirmed, Johnson versus McIntosh affirmed that the European discovery gave nations an absolute title to lands in the Americas. Lands, this is real estate. See, I'm not all over the place. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know exactly where I'm headed with this. We're talking about real estate, seizure of lands. See, I did some homework on my family lineage, and I found out when slavery was still going on, there's a lot of folks in my family and a lot of my friends' family that were still documented as free people of color. And that fits right in line with what they're saying. You held only a right of occupancy. See, we were able to occupy the land as free people, but we didn't own anything. Didn't own anything. And I hear people say that all the time right now. Oh, man, look at all the gangbangers. They're fighting each other over properties they don't even own. The funny thing is, many of you all, even if you have a mortgage there, you don't necessarily own that either. Eminent domain, and they can go take whatever you want if you don't pay your taxes, or they can go take that house from you. What do you mean? How is that ownership? That's not ownership. What do you mean I have to give you a cut? A cut? Why? Why am I giving you a cut? Why am I getting taxed? A tax is a penalty. Why am I being penalized? I got to kick in? What I got to kick in for? What I got to kick in for? Real estate tax. You got to pay your property taxes, boy. My property taxes. Man, my ancestors paid the ultimate tax, free labor. But we still have to, pay that property tax. Because we talking about real estate. Real estate that's been taken from other people. Exploited from other people. You have to purchase real estate that came from God. That's where we're at with things right now. Now, let's see where things are in the modern time. Despite its historical roots, the doctrine continues to affect indigenous land rights in North America. Now, see, I don't know about all these new movements they got going on. I ain't trying to give them no type of limelight because I don't know enough about it. But in 2023, Pope Francis formally repudiated the doctrine, acknowledging it was its unjust and a racist legacy. Repudiated. So he came out and said some negative words about it. It's about real estate. The Pope said that this was unjust and racist. The Pope said that in 2023, that it was racist. All right. But here's the thing. It's still going on today. See, the doctrine of discovery legitimized European claims to non-Christian lands. European claims to non-Christian lands and justified the displacement of indigenous peoples. The displacement. There's some indigenous folks in Australia that used to be the only people that looked just like me. And they ain't really around over there no more because of this doctrine right here. There's some people that look like me in the Americas, and we keep getting displaced more and more and more and more and more and more. Redlining, rezoning, redistricting, shutting down schools, shutting down plants, shutting down everything, pushing us around over and over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. Now, they claim that the modern repudiation efforts aim to address historical injustices and restore indigenous sovereignty. The doctrine of discovery remains a critical lens for understanding the historical and ongoing struggles of indigenous peoples against colonial legal frameworks and advocating for justice and reconciliation. That's what they're saying, right? That's what they're saying. And we can break down into the Papa Bulls, the whole nine, right? But when we're talking about, I want to make sure we're clear here. Oh, hold on. Hold on. I want to make sure that we're very clear here that when we're talking about real estate, that it is understood that it dominates everything that's going on today. That's economics, that's education, that's politics, that's labor, that's law, that's religion, as we just read. This isn't some conspiracy that I'm just spewing out because I think it's cool and it's cute to say some stuff that people may not be familiar with. No, these are things that have happened that many people are not familiar with, and unfortunately, some don't want to get familiar with it. They're afraid that something may happen to them if they understand the truth. But if something's going to happen to you, it's going to happen to you regardless. The best thing about it is to know the truth and be able to take the best steps forward to build a constructive house. See, the money masters, the powerful class, they're here to destroy the house. We're here to construct the house. See, it's a big difference. It's a big difference. When you got folks out here that they're running and gunning to take other people's land, make people prisoners of war on their own land, then use those same people to pick tobacco and pick cotton and work the steel mills and make horseshoes and build houses and do all the sorts of things that would make you a superpower so you can take other people's land, other people's real estates, other people's property. The original OPP. We showed you the original gangster, Pope Alexander Ben Thuggin VI. Thuggin. That's thuggin. That's thuggin. You put it on paper, and you got folks hopping on sailboats, going all the way to Cuba and Dominican Republic and Brazil. Thugging, stealing, taking real estate. Then you create laws like the Homeowners Loan Corporation created laws back in the 30s to ensure that blacks were not able to get any sort of refinance efforts or any sort of loan modifications that all of the other white applicants got. And in fact, they created the residential security maps that redlined us, redlined black folks. They designed all different sorts of, or drew up. Matter of fact, let me pull up the map legend so you can see. And this is from the Homeowners Loan Corporation, a part of the New Deal from President Franklin Delano Roosevelt back in 1933 when they were coming out of the Great Depression. There were they wanted to drive the economy, and one way you do it, one of the more common ways, probably one of the more efficient ways, is you want to drive up purchasing power. Well, you got to give some folks some relief on their housing. So they took the mortgages from, I believe they were like 10 years at that time, and then they started making them be 15, 20, and now we're at 30 years. But they extend the mortgage so your payment's lower, and it allows you to buy more stuff so that can fuel the economy, because now that you're not tripping out over your housing, you can spend some more money on other stuff to fuel the economy. But black folks weren't given that opportunity. In fact, they created maps that steered people away from helping out, giving any blacks any refinance efforts, and anyone who was wanting to sell their homes, realtors would steer you away from that. And appraisers would ensure that your house was not worth anything to sell, even though you may have had a mansion bigger than a house on the other side of town. But yours is worth nothing, and you would be your area would be redesignated as less desirable or hazardous. Let's see if we can pull up this map legend so you can see, because as y'all know, if you look at my Legacy Law series where I break down the different Black Wall Streets, I know I did Freedman's Town over there in Houston. I got some great feedback there. Overtown in Miami, I mean, that one pushed 10,000 views. Sugar Hill in Jacksonville, Florida is close to 10,000. I think maybe it's 8,000, somewhere in there. I have to go look again. But Sugar Hill in Jacksonville. I know we did Milwaukee. And Milwaukee has some rich history. I'm going to double back on y'all. So I haven't forgot about y'all, but we talked about Bronzeville. I'm going to double back on Milwaukee. When I was living in Michigan, I would go to Milwaukee pretty often. That city is full of rich black indigenous history. And even the name Milwaukee, like, I mean, come on. But it's a lot of rich history there. A lot of rich history. Detroit, y'all on deck. Y'all in the hole. Y'all ain't on deck, but I'm coming around to y'all too. Paramore, Orlando, Florida. I'm coming to y'all. Dealing. I'm hitting up as many as y'all as I can, man. I'm a one-man crew, so all the research, all of that stuff is on me. But I love discussing the history of real estate, especially when it pertains to black folks. Even though I know we were reclassified as black, and that was never a label we gave ourselves, just like African American. That's not a label that black folks gave themselves. Jesse Jackson decided that it would be a good idea for us to say we're African, but I mean, most of the folks I know, they can't identify any African in their family. My grandparents and great grandparents, they never told me about any Africans, but they did tell me about Native Americans, or as they called them, Indians. And that wasn't offensive. I'm not sure where that began to be an offensive term, because the history of that term doesn't mean anything offensive, and it has nothing to do with the country called India over there in Asia. That country actually at that time wasn't called India. It was called Hindustan. So that's not the place that Columbus was looking for. He wasn't looking for those Indians. That wasn't even the place. He was looking for the Indians here. Yeah, it just means people and God, or indigenous people. I don't know why it would be offensive, but the people, Columbus wasn't looking for a different India. He wasn't, because that place was called Hindustan. So, the more you know and the more research you do, you find out you may have been indoctrinated more than educated. And that's unfortunate. That's part of the deception of the powerful class. But we're here to go over real estate that's been taken, real estate that's been exploited, real estate that's been um, fought over, cheated on, destroyed, that real estate. And the powerful class goes out of their way to continue to deceive you and destroy you. And you see it every day with everything that's going on, but we're not going to get too much off the rails. I want to make sure that we're dialed in when we're talking about real estate, because I do want to make sure that there's not anyone who thinks that I go all over the place. I don't go live enough to keep y'all engaged on what's going on, because I'm out here doing research. I'm putting together a very impactful documentary, so it's taking me some time out of my being engaged with you all, because I got, you start doing some research and you see a lot of stuff and you're like, oh, I got to add that. Then you see more stuff, you're like, oh, I got to add that too. And then you see more stuff, you're like, oh man. And you turn around and it's been 30 days and you haven't posted anything. It's like, oh man, I hate that. So I want to make sure that I do continue to go live, but I have to be real with y'all. If I'm going live, that's going to slow down the documentaries. And I know a lot of folks like the documentaries. It gets a lot of traction. I get a lot of commentary, and I enjoy showing people, because black folks, we're not all thugs. That makes just like 1% of the black community is gang banging and thugging. Like, that's not like, there's a whole 99% of folks that ain't never touched a gun, they never sold drugs, they never did none of that. But the media have you thinking that every black person you see is toting guns and we got drugs in our pocket ready to sell. Like, it's like, man, no, man. If anything, my experience, because I'm classified as a black person, most black folks are very unserious. Very unserious. Everything's a damn joke all the time. Everything's a joke. They're always looking to have fun. I'm a stick in the mud, you let some tell you. But I like to have fun too. There's nothing wrong with that, but we can be a very unserious people at times. Make no mistake, you can get your head knocked off because we still them people. But we're very unserious. Like, we're unfazed by many things. And that comes from stuff like this: displacement, always having to pick up and move, always having to move around. Section 8, another thing with displacing. You have to pick up and move all the time, pick up and move all the time. Every lease that runs out, you got to go somewhere else. That's just furthering this agenda to get you indoctrinated, to get you prepared, to get you used to having to pick up and move all the time. That's what it's about. We're talking about real estate, y'all. Real estate has been taken and stolen from black folks. Real estate. They love taking that real estate, man. They love thugging. These folks been out here thugging, man. Taking people's stuff. Stealing land, stealing resources, stealing everything. And we sit here with our heads in the dirt acting like it's sweet. Oh, man, it's no big deal. It's just, they just out here thugging. It ain't no big deal, man. They just out here thugging, man. What's the big deal? As long as I get to pay my rent, pay my mortgage, my bills paid, who cares that, who cares that people getting killed? Who cares that they thugging over land? Who cares about the real estate? That was way back in the day. That ain't got nothing to do with me today. That was way back then. Should I pay for the sins of my ancestors? I was talking to a guy, and I don't like to make everything about white and black. I didn't start it. That was going on before I was alive. So that's just an unfortunate thing that I live with. I typically don't even address people like that. Like, it's not like, oh, I saw this white guy today. Like, I don't even pay that no mind half the time, to be honest. Like I know that I'm looking at someone white, but that's not the first thing that's in my head. And most black folks are like that, to be honest. Like, we're not really tripping on you like that. We'll hear out what you have to say, and if you full of it, we'll know, and we'll just keep it pushing from there. But we were having a conversation, and he was more so going over, oh man, I shouldn't have to pay for the sins of my ancestors. I don't even know any ancestors that owned slaves or nothing like that. I'm like, I feel you. But why should we have to pay for the sins of your ancestors? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why are we paying for it? Like, you're reaping the benefits of it. And he was like, I don't reap any benefits. I'm like, you're here. You're here. You're here. That's the biggest benefit. If you weren't reaping any benefits, you'd be in Europe. Not here. Not here. You'd be over there, not here. That's the biggest benefit. The taking of the real estate that got you over here. The taking of that real estate. That's what got you over here. So you get to reap the benefits of it. So yeah, you got to kick in. I mean, we kick in for all kind of wars and all kind of other stuff, and I'm not the biggest on like focusing in and hammering in that y'all owe black people reparations. That's already understood. Like, you do. So we not going. I mean, the true reparations is what I'm talking about right here. Is giving back the land that's taken from people. It doesn't belong to you, and that's got to be worked out. That has to be worked out. We can't keep brushing that off like it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. It is a big deal. It is a big deal. Now, there's a lot of people, oh, man, well, they ain't going to let that go without a fight. Hey, I'm not here to get into all of that. I'm not trying to take up arms against any of that. I'm just saying it needs to be worked out. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And going about it that way is proving to me that you're evil. It's proving you're evil. That's what something evil would do. An evil person would want to kill you for acknowledging that they did something wrong to you, and now they want to kill you. That's something an evil person would do. That's from an evil entity. Why would anybody that's of pure and godly want to cause harm to somebody who's just pointing out a wrong that's taken place? That's evil. Evil would do that. Not good. And we're about good people here. We're about constructive people. That's what we're about here, building constructive households. And it starts with knowing the origins of how we got mixed up in the first place. So this is where the beginning of gentrification came from. It's from the doctrine of discovery, from the Papa Bulls, the Inter Cartera. This is where this started at. So make no mistake about it. This is not something that just, oh man, I don't know where it happened. Nobody really knows. Like, I would hear that coming up. Nobody knows where racism came from. Nobody knows nothing. They were coming over here. I can remember being in elementary school, and I'm sure many of you can as well. Being in elementary school and being told that, hey, I don't know where, hold on. What's going on here? Wait a minute. Being told that people came here for, their religious freedoms. They came here to be able to serve the Lord and in peace and not have to worry about anything else. And that's why they're here. They didn't come here looking to hurt anybody or do anything like that. And then when you look at the real history and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. And they were telling it to me the whole time. I just didn't understand it, because the way it's being indoctrinated. But the Spanish and Indian War, the French and the Indian War, that was them taking their real estate. It's not funny, but the funny part is how, like, I got duped. It's like, dang, I really got duped. Like, you played in my face. You didn't keep it real with me. You said that the pilgrims was coming here to serve the Lord. But really, they was coming in for the Papa Bulls, and the doctrine of discovery told them to bring their butts over here and start taking some land. We need some real estate. And to this day, they're still putting out all sorts of policies that is furthering that agenda. And That's what I'm here to bridge that gap, to show that. So you don't think that this is just some one-offs when you see your city and you see it coming to a city near you. This isn't a one-off. This has been going on for hundreds of years. And it's still going on right now. And more people are so lured to sleep. They don't like, and to be honest, I'm not even going to say a lot of people are lured to sleep. Although it appears that way, I think a lot of folks, particularly black folks, are tired. We're tired. We've been fighting a long time. I think our DNA, like in your DNA, when you're born, before you're born, you're exhausted already. Slavery, I'm sure, would do that to you. Fighting. We're talking about Jim Crow segregation. That thing was a beast. That was another beast. All those signs up for coloreds only and all that. All of that over real estate. Can you be near me or no? Speaking of which, I was supposed to be showing y'all this map legend. Y'all can't let me get off topic. Like, I mean, it's all good. We here chopping it up, man. We here chopping it up. We here chopping it up. We chopping it up. So let's take a look at this map legend, man. I want y'all to see this, right? So here's how the legend goes. You got best, still desirable, definitely declining, hazardous. And this is Jacksonville, right? So let's see if we can zoom it in so you can see it. All right. Okay, so let's take a look here. And we'll break it down. But legend should be, where is the legend at? It should be on the map as well. There we go. Well, yeah, I was about to say, they always put it on the map because, you know, they got to document the taking. They got to document when they out there taking. So, yes, A is green, which is best. B is blue, which is still desirable. Yellow is C, which is definitely declining. Red is hazardous, right? And that's the red line. And you look at Jacksonville, because Jacksonville is predominantly black, right? Or has a large black population. And dang near all of Jacksonville red. Look at that. Look at that. All of it's hazardous. The whole town's hazardous. And they have been perpetuating this till this day. First 48 shows you, oh, it's just hazardous down there. It's just a whole bunch of thugging. They put it on the news, First Coast News, News for Jacks, Action News. All of that is telling you how bad it is. And the blacks are unruly. The blacks are ungodly. The blacks are hazardous. So they must be redlined. You don't want to live here. You don't want to be here. But as you see right now, these areas are being taken over. They're being taken over. This is real estate we're talking about here. Look at this real estate. Look at this map. This isn't a very old map. Let me see what year this is. 1937. January 11th, 1937. Prepared by the Division of Research and Statistics of the Homeowners Loan Corporation, HOLC, Homeowners Loan Corporation. Yeah, I come with the receipts. See, this was the gentrification before the gentrification they telling y'all about today. You see this? They had a whole map right here. They had it mapped out. Appraisers, realtors, bankers were all told, do not do any sort of lending, buying, or selling. Appraising, none of that in these areas is red. And it's just so coincidental that these areas are where all the black people are at. And particularly Sugar Hill was in one of these red zones. I did a whole documentary on Sugar Hill, and we found out that that neighborhood was loaded with millionaires. The first black millionaire in the state of Florida, I believe in 1901, Abraham Lincoln Lewis. Abraham Lincoln Lewis was a millionaire in the early 1900s. He had so much bread, he went out and bought property in Amelia Island and named it American Beach and made the beach for colored people only. Real estate. He went and bought a whole, I think it was 100 acres or something like that. That beach is still there today. 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 Matter of fact, let's look him up real quick. Abraham Lincoln Lewis. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is him right here. The Jax Mag. Shout out to the Jax Mag. I do use y'all for good research when we're talking about Jacksonville. I'm not going to lie. And I give y'all credit. I put it in the references at the end. And I try to make sure I put it in each clip I use. But I do give y'all credit. And I'm giving you your credit right now. I will continue. The Jackson Mag. For sure. Thank you. Thanks for y'all work and y'all keeping the legacy of Jacksonville, Florida going and showing the history for sure. These these are homes that were built in the early 1900s, some of them in the 1800s. Look how big these houses are. You see what I'm saying? We talking about real estate. Look way back in the day. They said these were in a hazard zone. See, this is today, but back then they said this was hazardous. This house was built in 1933 and it was labeled hazardous right when it was built. Come on now. Come on. Let's be real. Let's be real. You talking about in the 30s, a 2-story home like this was already hazardous when it was just built? Man, come on, man. It's garbage. That's garbage. But I wanted to talk about Abraham Lincoln Lewis, American Beach. And he ran the Afro-American life insurance. That was his bread and butter. He also owned some other things, a bottling company, Abraham Lincoln Lewis, Afro-American life insurance. Became the state's first African-American millionaire. See, I ain't making it up. I did a whole thing on it, but I got newcomers and stuff like that, so y'all may not be familiar with the work and what we do and how we're helping build constructive houses over here. All right, but American Beach, it's on Amelia Island in Nassau County, Florida, just north of Jacksonville. But due to Jim Crow laws, African Americans were not allowed to enjoy many basic recreational amenities. Abraham Lincoln Lewis realized the need for African Americans to have recreational activities for their families, so he founded the Lincoln Golf and Country Club. Yes, which featured a clubhouse and facilities, and he purchased 200 acres of Nassau County beachfront land along Atlantic Ocean. African Americans weren't permitted of most beaches in Jacksonville, and Lewis, his dream was to create a community where African Americans could visit and own reasonably priced homes along the ocean. This community, which he named American Beach, was a thriving vacation spot throughout the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. Summers at American Beach were known for being jammed with families, churches, and children. The beach included hotels, restaurants, and nightclubs, as well as homes and businesses. American Beach is registered as part of the National Register of Historic Places. Lewis was a heavy contributor to black colleges. All right, and which is very interesting because you hear so many times, folks will say, "Oh, the blacks, the black millionaires never give back to the community. They never do anything about the black community. They don't go back to where they come." And every time someone does it, they always give like this sleight of hand to them. Like, oh, like I know what Nipsey Hussle. Oh man, see, that's why you don't need to go back and help. But like, it's damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But they never point at people like Abraham Lincoln Lewis who did all of that for the black community. I won't say single-handedly because I know he worked with a lot of other folks, a lot of prominent people like Lawton Pratt and just other people in the community. I could go down a whole laundry list of them, but they were working together. But a lot of folks at that time were doing their best to reestablish the real estate. And then next thing you know, the homeowners loan corporations build those maps to make sure you do not reestablish the real estate that was once yours. And that's why we need to talk about the origins of gentrification, because it started way back with the doctrine of discovery. Then they moved into slavery in place, where they made you prisoners of war in your own home, as Dr. King said in his I Have a Dream speech, being made prisoners in your own home. Because many black folks, we are very familiar with our indigenous roots here in this land, even though we've been told for the longest we don't have any, which is very unfortunate. Because I'll be honest, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that folks would grab people up out of Africa, take them to a land that they've never been to, and tell them to farm this land, harvest out of this land. They're unfamiliar with the land to begin with. So how would they even be any successful? It seems like it would have taken them a long time to be able to get that right. Not to mention, we're talking about taking people on sailboats to go to another land that they told me when I was growing up there was no one here except for a few teepees. You go to a land with no one there, and they're just supposed to build it up. And I was like, oh, yeah, because, the Africans were just so smart and so resilient. They came and they figured it out real fast. I'm like, none of that makes sense. None of that makes sense. They didn't have, you can't get that many. They said 100 million slaves. Hey, you can't even get that many people on a Carnival cruise ship today. How was they doing that way back then? It took them 100 years to get all them slaves over here. They was doing that. No, sir. Not a chance. Doesn't even make sense. All the numbers doubling and all of that. I'm like, no, that doesn't make enough sense. That doesn't make enough sense. You know what makes sense? Prisoners of war. That's what makes more sense to me. That evidence is there. The other evidence, I don't see that. That's a whole lot of speculation. But the evidence of prisoners of war, that's right there. You can see that. You come over to another person's land, you're taking it over. You're warring over their real estate. You're intermarrying so you can get gains from the real estate. That makes more sense. That's documented. That's evidence that you can see and cross-reference. Taking a whole bunch of people out of Africa, even if the Africans are selling most of them, those numbers, the numbers don't make enough sense. The numbers are way too high for some sailboats. I don't care about no stacking 100 people, and you ain't stacking that many people. You know how many dead people be on the other side of that trip? Be a wasted trip. Waste of all of that selling. Waste of all that thugging. Make more sense. I get over here and I unleash the warriors on you, and we get to battling it out. And if I win, I'm taking your land and taking your women. And I'm taking your children and I tell them they from Africa. That make more sense to me. Along with the intermarrying, that happened. And then I get to just inherit the land. And that's the tactic you lose when you can't thug the land from somebody. Some of them tribes wasn't letting you just get the thugging on them like that. They was fighting back for real. So you had to intermarry and do other things like that to be a member. No, we're talking about real estate, man. We're talking about real estate. I'm going over historical events that happened. And I want to open up eyes and help build constructive households for those who need the most help. There's a lot of people out here who are lost. They have no idea about how to obtain financing to get anything. They have no idea where this even came from. They have no idea about the system. They're just going day to day, minute by minute, moment by moment, hoping they can get to the next paycheck. That's where we're at with it right now. That's where we're at. And that's how they're living their life. They're not thinking anything about what you're thinking about. Like I said, a lot of black folks are unserious people. Unserious people. They're not out here game planning. But don't get it twisted. There are some. I'm just saying there's many that are just very unserious. Everything's a joke. But what I will say is most of us aren't out here thugging and robbing and stealing. Um, the ones that are, they're just copying the money masters. The powerful class taught them that. They're the ones go out stealing stuff, taking real estate, taking people's real estate, man. Isn't that crazy? But yeah, that's how it goes. So don't get it twisted, man. That's how that goes. But I wanted to drop by. I'm not sure how much longer I'll be on here. But I'm going to try to be a little more engaging. I know I've been doing a lot of research for the documentaries, but I want to be more engaging when it comes to this. And I want to make sure I'm keeping y'all in the loop for supporting and holding it down and actually subscribing and checking out, man. It means a lot to me because I do a lot of hard work on putting these documentaries together and presentations and classes and books. It's a lot of work that goes into it, so it does make it worth it when I see that I get new subscribers, when I see that people are liking the content and showing love. It really means a lot. So at the end of the day, I do want to make sure that it's well understood that we're talking about real estate. All right, we're talking about real estate that was displaced, stolen, taken, and that's the creation of gentrification. All right, that's the origins of it. It's not about condos that's going up in your downtown. It's not about the developing that's happening on the east side. It's not about the developing that's happening on the north end. It's about a doctrine that said we gonna get to taking your real estate through deception and destruction. And they're still carrying that legacy on today with the deception part. Like we're in the refinement stage, so they don't got to do as much like physical harm because they've beaten the sense out of many people. So they're just empty vessels waiting to be directed to where they got to go next. That's where we at now. Just direct me to where I got to go next. As long as I don't get beat on, please direct me to where I have to go next. I'll go there. Just please do not hit me no more with that whip, please. And that's where we're at with it, you know. So we're in the refinement phase. And it's just telling you what to do, where to go. And they do it through policy now. They got redlining, they rezoning stuff right now, all kind of policies coming out. They planning on what they're doing next, and you're not planning on nothing but how to give them more of your money. I got to work harder so they can get a bigger cut. The money masters, they operate in percentages. That's why you don't have a flat rate for your taxes. They don't say just give me $100 a check. No, they got a percentage. The more money you make, the more money they take. It's for the taking. Same with your property taxes. It's percentage. Percentage of that home assessment. Percentage of that home assessment. That's how much they billing you every year just for you being here. But who's taxing them? Who's taxing them? For all the real estate that they've stole, who's taxing them? Ain't nobody taxing them because they'll tax your ass. And that's real. That's real. That's real. That's real, man. I'm going to just keep it real with you, man. They ain't playing around when we talking about that, man. They is not playing around with that. Heck no. Heck no, man. You go in there talking about where y'all taxes at, boy. Pope Alexander VI, he was thugging, so they ain't got to pay you no tax. They ain't paying no tax. They out here thugging. They're thugging. They're thugging. They're thugging. So, just to break things down, before I skedaddle up out of here, if the doctrine of discovery took the land, redlining was to make sure you never get the land back. All right. I mean, even think about areas like in Atlanta, right? Think about the old Fourth Ward, the West End, where they gentrifying over there like crazy. Bankhead. What happens when a neighborhood is denied investment for decades, labeled undesirable, left to decline, and then suddenly the developers move in, luxury apartments go up, and they call it revitalization. We're back in the 60s, urban renewal. But here's the real question: was it ever allowed to thrive in the first place? See, this isn't random. This is reinvestment after intentional neglect. Like I said, they use policy. There's no coincidence that things will be rezoned so certain tax dollars are not placed in certain places. There won't be police support in certain places. Law enforcement will not support certain places. Schools will be shut down in certain places to ensure the destruction of that zone, to guarantee it. And then you'll have your investors come through, scoop it up, break bread, mold down all your stuff and throw new stuff on top of it and erase you. They've been erasing history. Anything that especially black Americans, the ones classified as so-called black. Anything that we put together, man, and it's nice, and they bulldoze that thing over. They like to do it. That's part of the sickness, the debauchery, is watching your stuff get knocked over. Watching your family cry in the middle of the street, hands and knees on the pavement, crying. While the news reporter out there reporting about the demolition of your home, your apartment building, your community, your school, your hospital. We're talking about real estate, man. They destroy real estate like it's nothing. Because it ain't theirs, it's God's. But they got you believing that you got to slave away and give them a cut. They getting cut, double cut. They get your income tax, property tax, school tax, sales tax. They getting all the tax. They get all kind of money. They got it. They got plenty of money. And remember that all the taxes is a percentage. So whenever inflation go up, they go up. It's not a flat fee. It's not a flat fee. They make money hand over foot on real estate taxes, property taxes. You paying a tax just for living in the home, for standing on their real estate. When they tell you own the house, and in order for you to keep owning the house, you got to give me a cut. Well, that don't sound like ownership, right? Like, oh, I own it, but I got to pay you or else you get to own it. That's crazy. But like I said earlier, we're in an unreal reality. It's not reality, man. This is crazy. This is unreal. It's unreal. It's unreal. And I know many folks are going to be like, man, that was the past. Let's talk about today. And I do talk about today. We talk about Ameris Bank with their redlining case that the Department of Justice fined them and penalized them for that. We talked about Trident Mortgage. Look at Countrywide and what they did to the economy as a whole. I go down all the different banks. The Bank of the Stars. I done bent down all of the different banks that's doing redlining today. Lending discrimination today so bad that the federal government had to go and take them to court. The Department of Justice had to take them to court. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act and all of that. We go down, we break it all down. Like I said, Ameris Bank right there in Jacksonville got hit up. Got hit up by the feds for redlining, for lending discrimination. It's in my redlining case files. I break down Ameris Bank. Nasty work. Nasty work. Fairway independent mortgage. Like I'll break them down. They doing it today. It's all about real estate. They don't even want to advertise to black people. We talking about way back in the day. What about now? They don't want to advertise to black folks now. Right now. It's so bad the government had to step in. Right now. Ameris Bank. Right now. Trident Mortgage. Right now. If I'm not mistaken, Trident Mortgage is Warren Buffett. It's his people. All of them right now. They still furthering the agenda from the doctrine of discovery. They still furthering that same agenda, which is deceit and destroy. We take your land, we exploit the land, we exploit your resources, and we exploit your politics, your economics. And it starts with us taking your land first. Land control, ownership over your resources, your real estate. That's what it starts with, man. This ain't nothing new. This has been going on since been going on. And then you have some folks, oh man, the Africans were doing that too. And they'll start doing all of that stuff because they don't want to accept accountability. Be accountable. If you're going to reap the benefits, then be accountable. Or just zip it up. Don't say nothing like you benefiting like a mug. You all the way over here. You probably supposed to be in Bulgaria or something. You supposed to be in Ireland or Romania. But you here. You here reaping the benefits of getting to be here when you should be somewhere else that don't got a place that got oranges and lemons like they have right here. Avocados and all of that stuff that can grow here with no problem. You don't have any of that. You're reaping all sorts of benefits from free labor and there's a lot of benefits you're receiving. But for some reason you want to convince me, who is the one not getting benefits because of the color of my skin. You want me to believe that you got it real hard. Like I showed you all at the beginning of today's session that my great grandfather was lynched. And it caused a displacement in my family. My grandmother, who I met, his wife, she died in a nursing home. They didn't give her any reparation for them unjustly dragging my grandfather on the back of a truck down the street, hanging him on a telephone pole and shooting him unjustly. All we got was it was wrong and it shouldn't have happened. There's no money. Some of those people are probably still alive today. So when you say that, like all you're saying is I'm ducking accountability. I don't want to be accountable for nothing. And I'll just keep saying it over and over and I'll keep doing whatever, but I'm not going to be accountable for my actions or the actions of nothing. Because your actions matter too. Sitting there and doing nothing is just as bad as helping. Because you ain't stopping something bad from happening, so you pretty much helping it. So we got to make sure that we're clear on that, because for far too long I've heard people continue this nonsense rhetoric about, oh, that was way back then and I can't pay for the sins of my forefathers. Yes, you can. Yeah, you can. And if you don't want to, then you must go. Get off the real estate. If that's how you feel, that you don't want to pay for nothing, then get off the real estate, then. I'm somebody that believes the real estate belongs to God, the Most High God. I believe that. I know that to be true. It doesn't belong to any of us. That is my assertion. That is how I live my life. I don't live my life thinking that real estate belongs to individuals. God blessed us with this real estate. Not to be out here warring with each other, shooting each other over it, dropping bombs over each other over it, gang banging over it. Street criminal gangs, they do the same thing that the money masters do over real estate. It's funny when I hear people say, oh man, those gang members fighting over real estate they don't even own. And it's like, well, what do you think the powerful class is doing? They go into other countries, they don't own that. They're in there fighting over that. They're fighting over land they don't own. I'm like, the gangbangers are just copying their master. That's it. They're just copying master. Master does it, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to do what master do. Master go over there thugging, I'm thugging too, just like master. Yeah, we the same. I'm just like my master. That's how they be rolling, man. I don't care nothing about nothing else. I don't care nothing about nothing else. That's how it goes. So I always find that funny when they're like, "Oh yeah, the black street criminals, they don't own anything, but they're outside fighting over blocks they don't own." First off, that's not always true. I don't know why y'all just instantly think no black people own houses. My dad owns his house. My uncle owns his house. Like I could go down at least 100 black folks I know that own property. So I don't know where y'all get this lie from other than the news. But a lot of that's a lie. I mean, my grandfather, great uncle, he moved to California. He owned several homes. He allowed my grandfather, which was his nephew, and some of his brothers to go live in the homes, which were duplexes, and rent out the other side in Compton, California. So I don't know about this jazz that we didn't own homes. That's not true. That's not true. Are there some that don't? Yeah, then there's white folks that don't own homes. There's Asians that don't own homes. There's Mexicans that don't own homes. Every group got people that don't own homes. But that don't mean 100%. I'm like, y'all got to stop with all these like extremes. Like every black person is not somebody who's just on Section 8. Like that's not every black person. Like we're not even the highest number of Section 8. But we have that stigma for whatever reason other than, well, the news, the media puts that stigma on us. Well, we all know who's the biggest beneficiary of things like that, and it ain't us. But we have to sit here and listen to these lies that keep being told over and over and over. And some of the stuff is legitimate. Some of the stuff is propaganda. All right? But look, when we're talking about stuff going on in real estate, I'm going to make sure I connect the loop so we all know what's going on here. I'm not letting my foot off the gas when we're talking about real estate. So will I sometimes be talking about different mortgage courses, mortgage sessions? Yes. Will I be talking about different things as it pertains to law? Yes, because that's all relative. Am I going to stop doing the legacy law series with all the different redlining that's going on in the urban renewal? Absolutely not. I will continue to talk about that. I will continue to keep my foot on the gas about that because that is needed. Because for far too long, we've heard people say that we need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and we need to start doing better as a community. We've already done that. All what y'all saying, that already happened. That already happened. That's happened several times up till now, to be honest. This is like the since slavery was emancipated, this is like the third time that we've had to redo stuff, and only because the money masters, they send their minions out to stop us. Every time we start doing well for ourselves, they draw policies. They send their minions out to destroy, like they did in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they're dropping bombs on everybody, or dropping dynamite out of airplanes because black folks had millions of dollars. They'll redline you in politics. They'll, like I said, set up different policies. to funnel tax dollars out of your neighborhoods, to funnel tax dollars into other neighborhoods. They'll suck away law enforcement support. They'll remove education centers, schools, etc. Like they're going to put a full court press on preventing you from pulling yourselves up by your bootstraps. And all the while still telling you nobody's doing that to you. And then they snatch the rug from under you. Nobody's snatching this rug up from under you. No, nobody's snatching this rug up. You're imagining things. Come back over here. Nobody's snatching this rug up from under you. And that's how they're acting. And many of us, we think that that's like not going on. It's not real. It's all in our head. And the sad part about it is anybody who's trying to correct these actions gets attacked. Unfortunately, by people who look like me. And that's how that goes. But you can't worry about that. You still got to keep pushing the message. You still got to bring truth to power. And you got to understand how to navigate in the system today. You got to understand how to do that. So with that being said, man, gentrification is not just about new people moving in. It is about systems deciding who belongs. It didn't start with condos. It started with the doctrine of discovery. And once you understand that, once you understand that, you don't just see neighborhoods differently. You see the entire system differently. So I'll leave you with that. Until next time, keep it constructive. Stay on top of your A game. We promoting balance between people. It's been real. It's been a long time since I've hopped on live, so I appreciate those who stuck it out with me. But we'll be back, and I'm going to start making sure I'm a lot more engaged with y'all, and we continue to keep pushing this message because it's needed. It's much needed. But thanks again. I hope you guys find that this was constructive, and until next time.